It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. If you are listening on the pod feed, you might hear it in my voice. If you're watching on YouTube, you undoubtedly see it in my face right now that uh the fantasy football season for me ended last weekend with a semifinal loss in the playoffs, and my body just took that as a sign to give out entirely, and I am recovering from the flu. So in some ways, Colin, they are calling this my flu game.
They are saying that. Yes. The aggregators and the journalists that are watching are like flu game for Austin this week.
So, and it's a big one because we're talking about the 2026 running back class once and for all.
Yeah.
We go all the way back to the summer. Remember that whole thing? Ooh, yikes. What do we got here? Let's hope that this season introduces a few new names, maybe a few guys climb up the board. Well, we've finally reached the moment where we will know once and for all what is in store for this class. And what was in store for you?
I'd say that I think we've kind of alluded to this in rankings and stuff is like maybe better than we expected, but not great. Like it's still not a good class. I think there's names that have more value than I expected. And like I watched tape and I was pleasantly surprised. I think there's also guys where I watch the tape and I'm like, oh, yuck. Like I do not like this guy at all. So I think there's a little bit of give and take of like guys that rose up the board that maybe you didn't expect, guys that you watched and you were like, oh, hey, I can throw this guy in and feel pretty good about it. But there's definitely a lot of that. Oh, yeah, 2026, maybe the haters were right about this class.
It just falls off very quickly. Like there's a couple of guys that were nice surprises for me, but after that it just tanks. And it's to a point where I'm actually kind of questioning how many running backs are even going to be drafted in dynasty rookie drafts next year, because there just isn't that many quality names in this class.
Yeah, and we did top 8 receivers. We're trimming this to top 5 running backs
Yeah.
because like you said, we get into these tier breaks and we get into like where it's going to fall off and what we're like comfortable really ranking, and it felt 5 felt like a good cutoff point of like let's not, reinvent the wheel and be like, yeah, this is my 8th best running back. You might take him in the 4th.
Yeah, and there's a couple of guys too that we kind of got an eye on to see if they're going to declare for this draft. We've only had a few of those come in for running backs so far, so we're still waiting on that element of it as well. But with the guys that are in the class for sure, and the seniors that we have, it's a slim class, but that's okay. You know what? They can't all be 2023. All right, you're not always going to get a Bijan and a Gibbs and an Achan and the whole rest of the gang. But
Exactly.
let's take a look at how the 2026 class breaks out for each of us. And I turned it over to you last week, so I guess I can
Two,
start us
two
off.
weeks ago now.
Two, you're right.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
I hope you
Merry
guys enjoyed your
Christmas.
holidays.
Yes. Little holiday break. But we are back, and I am starting us off with number 5, which is Kaytron Allen.
Okay. I left him at 6.
At 6. Okay. So I will be anxiously waiting by to see if we flipped our 5 and 6, which I have a suspicion we may have. But Kaytron Allen, this is a player that we talked a lot about down the stretch of the season because he had an excellent finish to the year. I mean, truly exceptional stuff. This is a player that has been a quality running back for Penn State for 4 years now. He's their all-time leading rusher, set that mark this season. That is, of course, an amazing honor for a school that has produced, no shortage of talents from at this position. So I was really curious what the film was going to look like for him because I mean, you see the 3 games at the end of the year 181, 160, 226. I mean, he was just on a tear. And I watched him in the summer and I came away with, mixed feelings. I kind of thought he's just, he's a day 3 running back. He's got some talent, but I think he's really limited in too many areas. I think he's still limited in some areas, but he certainly got better this year. He certainly put out better film this year, added a little bit to his game. I thought he looked a little bit more explosive this year. You definitely saw him when he was getting space, turning those into bigger carries and creating some big plays, especially in the late part of the season when he was really piling it on. Um, he's a player that forces missed tackles at a decent clip. You do see him kind of getting off of guys, getting around guys. One of the things that has always bothered me with Allen was that given his size, 5'11, 219, I always wanted him to run with more power. I still think that is something that I am left wanting even after watching this season, but I do think it was a little bit better this year. I thought he was running with a little bit more violence, which is something that I really want to see from him because he has the build for it. And he's clearly got some athleticism behind it as well. So I was pleasantly surprised. His grade definitely climbed a bit for me from the summer.
Yeah, I think I had Allen as my 5 before, and I just flip flopped him with another player in a similar tier as I think 5 and 6, maybe 4, 5 and 6 are in a similar tier for me. Uh, but Kaytron, I feel like is one of those early down backs that you can just like hammer a lot. You give him like a ton of carries if you want to in your offense, and he's a grinder. He gets like those tough short yards pretty often. Like you said, I wish he was a little more violent. It feels like maybe avoiding contact sometimes, but when you have him, banging into the O line 25 times a game and he's not finding those spaces, he can still provide a good amount of value, giving you those, hard 3-4 yard carries throughout a game. So I liked Kaytron Allen too. This is like 6 is where it falls off for me after Kaytron Allen. So I definitely like echo a lot of what you said, and I feel like he could have been a better pass catcher given more opportunities, but they had both of those good backs back there with Nick Singleton as well. So it's like you throw him out there because he's the more athletic, the kind of guy with a little more wiggle than Kaytron Allen has, but save Allen for the hard real running back stuff, I would say. So if you had him in an NFL offense and maybe you wanted to use him more as a battering ram, you could do that, but I feel like he can be a little more varied of a running back than that. So I thought that he was a pretty solid player. I guess I had higher expectations from him, so he got brought down a little bit for me, and then you brought him up a little bit. So I feel like we're kind of meeting in a similar spot.
Yeah, I mean it was, we talked about him on the mock draft episode too because I mean that late season surge was just so impressive. And one of the things to note there, that was kind of a product of the scheme change. Like James Franklin gets fired and something definitely changed in this offense because all of a sudden Kaytron Allen was running almost exclusively in power runs. Like gap scheme, I mean, it like flipped like a switch. And the second that happened, he started to put together these monster games. So I think that right there tells you that maybe there's something a little bit untapped with the player where if they were asking him, to run zone more often and that wasn't something that he was entirely comfortable with, and then they got him into the zone scheme and now all of a sudden he's just a powerhouse. That's just something to keep in mind for when we consider landing spots and what an offense is going to try to do with him. um, I will say on the weaknesses front, or sorry, the areas for opportunity front, you mentioned it, early down back. I think that's all he is at the NFL level. Not only was he not catching passes, which has a lot to do with Nick Singleton, like you said, but in the games that I watched, he was also a problem in pass protection. So
Not in a
I
good
think,
way.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
not in a
Not like
good
he's a
way.
problem. No.
Yeah. No, he was. So yeah, I think he is going to be very limited in terms of, how he can be deployed in the NFL. But that being said, this is a weaker running back class, and this kind of player, as limited as he may be, is going to come in as a number 5 player.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Also facing a lot of stack boxes back half of the season post Aller injury. Just want to put that out there that, like, if you're looking at some of the yards per carry down the stretch and you're like, ugh, I don't love that, that could have a little bit of an explanation to why.
Yes.
Another guy that's facing a lot of stack boxes due to being a part of a developing passing offense is Justice Haynes.
Okay.
I have him at number 5. Is he in your?
I have him at number 4.
Okay, great. So Haynes played 7 total games this season. Got injured with a foot injury that he needed surgery on after the Michigan State game in week 9. So that's why total numbers might not be the prettiest thing that you've ever seen. 857 yards, 10 touchdowns on 121 carries. But Haynes impressed me. This was a guy that I had below Kaytron Allen that kind of came up for me, and he was burstier than I expected. I really like how he continues, like, doesn't lose a lot of speed when moving laterally. I feel like that was a big plus where he's making guys miss maybe in the hole or making a linebacker miss and then still being able to outrun a safety that's bearing down on him. I feel like there's a few times that he turned maybe a routine, 7-yard well-blocked run into a huge, like, breakaway. So I feel like there is a lot of that breakaway opportunity for him. He's also a nice short yardage back. I feel like he finds space really well. He plays fast, which can get him in trouble a little bit for getting ahead of maybe the blocking a little bit, but I still feel like there is enough patience here, and the jump cuts are really nice where he is kind of popping around. And like I said before, like, he doesn't lose a lot of that speed because he has good acceleration. So, like, he'll pop and then find yards where he'll get another, like, 4 after that, just off of, acceleration, changing the angle at which the linebacker is hitting you, and then you're falling forward instead of falling backward because the guy's hitting you on your side instead of straight on. So I felt like I was pleasantly surprised because I kind of saw Haynes more like I imagined more like Kaytron Allen is, where it's more of like a grind and you're kind of chunking it out, and on a well-blocked play you can break one out. But it felt like Haynes was creating more than Kaytron Allen was, which is why he ended up sliding up for me in this tier.
Yeah, I'm really curious how he's going to test because he also surprised me a little bit with his athleticism. And I think this is something that we touched on during the season because when he was healthy, when he was playing, he was obviously having a very good season, first year at Michigan. He was creating a lot of explosive plays in those games. And so it was kind of one of those things where it's like, is this the Michigan O-line like moving guys and creating a runway for them? And in a lot of cases, like, partially, but also, like, he was creating these plays by getting outside, like you said, with that lateral explosiveness and the ability to turn that upfield and accelerate. I thought that was really impressive. And I like his build a lot. 5'11", around 210. Runs low to the ground, has kind of that natural stocky build. Had one career fumble, and it came in his last game against Michigan State. So, pretty reliable ball carrier as well. And honestly, despite the fact that he only had 13 catches this year, I kind of liked the receptions that I saw from him. I think that's an area that that can work for him in the NFL. They were running him on some design passes later in the season, and I mean, you see the yardage totals here. Like last game of the year, which was one of the games I watched against Michigan State, he had 3 catches for 19 yards. it's not super impressive in the box score, but like he was making some plays on those receptions. The hands look pretty natural. I think this is an area where he's not necessarily like a Kaytron Allen, where it's like, well, there's no hope for him to catch. Like he's a first and second down running back that we're going to plug in, in the short yardage situations. Like there's a little bit more here with Haynes to like. So this was definitely a tier up for me. He kind of solidified himself as part of this next tier that I'm going to continue with my next player. But yeah, Haynes, I really impressed with what I saw.
Yep. I also like on the pass catching, pass blocking front. I feel like it's kind of a harder job with a mobile quarterback to be a pass catching running back because this like a lot of times you see this with like a PPR back and it's like you're just they're gonna run like instead of giving you the ball they're just gonna take it themselves. Why make a one-step process a two-step process where like I'm athletic enough to make it work? So not doing a ton of like check downs and stuff like that. So I understand that. Would have liked to see him on screens more because I feel like he was really good when he was given the ball on screens, even if it was like not blocked very well, making a guy miss in the open field and then like getting behind his blockers and running with pace. Because I remember seeing, I don't remember the Dolphins backup running back that we had in camp, Jalen Wright, like outran his blockers on a screen. And it was like, if you just wait a tick, you have a touchdown. And like I feel like Haynes is good at playing with that pace on those screen passes and understands, the timing and how it's supposed to be blocked up. And when, your old linemen are slower than you, I feel like sometimes you're just like, hey, I see open grass, I got to go. Wait for those big fellas to get down and protect you a little bit. So I was impressed with that. And then the pass blocking I thought was pretty good. He picked up blitzes, I think, pretty well. When it came to just like a chip and go, it didn't seem like it seemed a little lazy where he's not really throwing the full shoulder into the ribs, but I still thought like not bad.
In terms of the areas of opportunity for Justice Haynes, we kind of touched on this earlier this season. I think it was at the midseason rankings update. Little bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. I don't really know what his standout trait is as a running back. I mean, I like the lateral ability. I like the ability to get outside and turn it up the field, but I wouldn't call him a burner. Wouldn't call him an explosive, phone booth kind of running back either. He's not forcing missed tackles at an extremely high clip. He's also not getting off of contact like very well in most cases. So you kind of end up with a running back that's offering you some athleticism, some skill, maybe some, a little bit of a pathway to development, but also I'm not sure that he is ever going to be one of the, top backs in the league or anything like that. I think he is a little bit of an upside capped player. But that being said, we talk about that kind of stuff in a vacuum. And at this position, all it takes is an opportunity. So it's always weird to talk about these backs like that because it's like all of a sudden Justice Haynes gets thrust into a starting role in the NFL. And it's like, well, all right, there it is. He's getting 20 carries a game or something. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, but that's just, I think he is a little bit more of a limited type of a player.
It's funny because with running backs, it's like all it takes is one team to love you.
Yes.
And like you could be fantasy relevant for your entire career or for, the first 4 years of your career. And it's like, Haynes feels like one of those guys that a coach or a GM could fall in love with. That's like, man, he's got these gritty runs. He can have some breakaway speed. He makes guys miss. He's decent in the pass game. That a good all-around back, maybe jack of trades, master and none type of back.
I'll give a shout out to our good friend Caleb, also known as Keel Pro 88, who has been a frequent guest in the past. He threw out a comp that I think is really interesting for a player like Haynes, which is Damian Harris, which We can draw all the lines, Alabama guys, and Haynes obviously transfers, but very similar size. I'm wondering how they're going to test though, because Harris was a 4.57 player. And I think Haynes is probably a 4.5 player, but I'm imagining it maybe be a little bit lower than
Yeah.
4.57.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I thought that was a pretty solid comp and a good kind of like marker for what this type of running back can be in the NFL, where Harris was relevant and he was, around for a while, but obviously was never one of the top backs in the league.
Started Damian Harris in a few games.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that is your 5 and my 4,
Yep.
which means
Your 5? Or did you already do your 5?
my 5 is Kaytron.
That's right. So I have Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska next.
And there it is. That's what I thought was happening. He is my number 6.
Gotcha. Okay, so another guy that I was pretty pleasantly surprised by. That's kind of the theme with these lower first top 5 guys, where I'm like Emmett Johnson, Justice Haynes, Kaytron Allen. That's a tier for me, where I'm like, all these guys I kind of watched and I was like, hey, I like you a little more than I thought, and that's the story with Justice Haynes and Emmett Johnson a little more than Kaytron Allen, where I had a little bit of a higher opinion on Allen, and he ended up sliding down a little bit because I liked Johnson and Haynes a little more. Johnson just like is churning out like these big plays after big plays. He's a long strider where you want to get him in the open field any way that you can. Had almost 1,400 yards, 1,451 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's had one fumble this year in week 2 against Akron, and then didn't fumble after that. Had multiple multi-touchdown games in this season. Had a game with 3 touchdowns against Michigan State and only 13 carries. Really started ramping up his production about mid-season onward. He had a Maryland game where he had 21 carries, and then after that, he only had 2 games with less than 20 carries. So he, down the stretch, really started piling it on. Nebraska ran this Heisman campaign for Emmett Johnson. Half his yards came after contact, which is not a ton. I would say that like there are running backs that have that number be more towards like 2/3 of their yards are after contact or more. It definitely felt like he was running with a lot of space, which you get a little bit of steam behind you and it makes it easier. He's more of a finesse runner than anything else. I didn't see a ton of aggression in his running style. He's a smaller back at 200 pounds rather than, Haynes is that stockier, like 210, maybe a little heavier than that. Johnson, I wouldn't be surprised if he weighed in even a little lighter than 200 pounds because he has kind of that slimmer, kind of lankier build. But 68 missed tackles forced. That's a pretty high number. Justice Haynes, for comparison, who played less games, I get it, had 23. So it's like you look at the comparison, it's like he's making guys miss. He has a good amount of wiggle, has a good like one cut dead leg move that he goes to often in the open field where he can change that direction and keep moving pretty quickly. And I think like there's a parallel a little bit to Justice Haynes where I think he can move laterally without losing a ton of that speed, and that helps him a lot get those breakaway runs. And so I was pretty impressed when I watched Emmett Johnson. I know we kind of mentioned him in passing a few times during the season, gave him a couple badges during the season, but coming back to it, I was like, is this like a gimmick thing? Is it, I didn't really know what to expect, but I came away feeling pretty good about him.
Man, I sat with this one for a long time. Like I still am not like he is an enigma to me because there are some things that I really like and there are some things that I thought were big red flags and I don't know what to believe with Emmett Johnson. First and foremost, because I'm trying to remind myself to do this. Emmett Johnson was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2022. He is an early declare. He is officially declared for the draft. He was running back 85 in that class. He breaks out this season, Like this is, you said it, 1,400 yards, like 597 last year. This was a complete breakout. You have Matt Rule campaigning for him to win the Heisman. And so it was, and then, like you said, we're talking about him down the stretch here. He's putting together these, incredible games. He ends the season with a grand finale against Iowa. So I'm going in like you are going in, like, what do we have here? Like, this seems like an exciting player. And he is an exciting player for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, which is that he is an explosive running back. He spams the jump cut.
Yeah.
Like that is like, it's one of those things where it took a few games for me to actually see him put his foot in the ground and turn it, like do like a speed cut instead of just like constantly doing the jump cuts. What I mean, it was working for him more often than it wasn't, but it's one of those things where you're kind of sitting there like waiting for him to do something else. Um, but it like I said, he can bounce it outside, he can get around tacklers, and he can accelerate once he finds some space. And we talked about this during the season. The long speed is not as impressive as I thought it was initially when I watched him. He does have great acceleration to get up into gear and get like create some of those big plays, but he wasn't finishing those runs consistently, and actually ended with less explosive runs than I would have thought that he did. He only had 13 runs of 15 or more yards in a 1,400-yard season. That's pretty crazy, especially considering his skill set. Also, the number one thing really for me that's like why I am hanging on to Emmett Johnson, even despite some of the things that I'm going to talk about in a minute, he is an awesome receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Like 46 catches, 370 yards this year. He looks great, and he'll find space in these scramble plays, and they'll run him on a variety of routes. They can line him up outside, get him around the formation. Like he's very comfortable with all of that. So I think you have, like you said, he's very much a finesse runner, with a little bit of speed, who can also catch passes. He kind of there's a world here where I'm envisioning Emmett Johnson kind of fitting into this zeitgeist of runner that we're seeing in the
Yeah.
NFL, where it's a little bit, they're a little bit undersized, but they have the skill to play on all downs, play across the formation, to do a lot of different things, to get outside and create outside. So that is all the stuff that I'm like, okay, I am excited about what Emmett Johnson can be.
Can I talk about that he might be playing with an eye patch on, because I don't know if he can like see the field completely.
Well, so yeah.
Yeah. The vision is sometimes like concerning.
The vision is somewhat concerning, and I think that is where the jump cut comes into this for me, where he gets very reliant on that to find space, because he is put like he'll be in these positions where it's like, oh, I gotta get out of here,
Yep.
like because he hasn't identified the place to be necessarily. And within that, something that the number one thing that really bothered me with Emmett Johnson, and I really like I was like sliding the grade up and down. I'm like, where do I want to end on this? Because the one thing that really bothered me is one of the big things that I really don't like to see, which is really messy feet.
Yep.
I thought his feet were pretty bad. Like behind the line of scrimmage, there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of unnecessary steps.
A lot of
When
wasted motion, I would
Yes.
say, in his like when he's approaching the line of scrimmage. It's like, instead of where you see Justice Haynes, it feels like he's almost hitting the hole too fast. It feels like Johnson is processing like in real time. And that's why your point about getting him in one of these pre-processed offenses where he can like, be get him in like a Devon Achan role where I'm not saying he's got to catch 8 passes a game like Achan, but like where he can run these zone plays where he can stretch it out and then make his one cut and just hit the hole. And you don't have to give him the ball at a mesh point and let him make this decision of like, I can go between either a gap and like sometimes he's reading it dead wrong and then he's trying to hop back to like the correct a gap that opens up. And like if this D tackle sheds his center, it's like everything goes out the window and now we're going to bounce it outside. And so I feel like there is definitely some, panic maybe. I don't know if that's the right word, but like the game hasn't slowed down for Emmett Johnson, I don't think. Even though, he put together this incredible season and compiled all these stats, it still feels like he's almost like jittery, like playing fast, and like he had 3 cups of black coffee before he like got into this game. And it's just, hey man, we got to take a breath and like take it, take the snap, hit your hole and use that speed, and then like use the jump cut at the second level instead of like bouncing around behind the line of scrimmage and then like getting 3 yards when your offensive line, like your guard is at the second level, but because you're dancing around back here, the guy that he moved on from is now making the tackle 2 yards downfield. So like your O-line's expecting you to already be beyond the D line. And so they're moving on and you're still hopping around in the backfield.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that is really scary because you can't ask these guys, like, it's not going to turn around once you get to the next level.
Right.
When things get faster, like the game's not slowing down so it's like that's the kind of stuff where when I see it, it really bothers me, but I am holding on to hope that he can at least start as a complementary piece, if nothing else, as a receiving complement back that can potentially develop within that role and become a little bit more of a well-rounded player. The other thing though is, you said this, and this was on my notes, finesse. There's very little, like, the contact balance, the shedding, like shedding tacklers. You don't get a ton of that with him either. So it's kind of a little bit of a one-dimensional runner, but you have this added dimension of being a pass catcher.
Yeah.
That's really kind of the lifeblood for him, I think, at the next level. But there's a little bit of a ways to go, I think, for him to really like contribute at the NFL level.
Yeah, I don't think, unless he's catching a ton of passes, I don't think he's going to be like an RB1, and he's not going to be, you see a guy with 1,400 rushing yards in college and for Nebraska and playing against these like big programs, and it's like putting again 200 yards up against Big Ten opponents. It's like, what's up with this guy? I still don't think like he's the running back that you are like want to put your stake in, that you're like, yeah, I can slot this guy in and feel real good about it. I think if you're in a PPR league, I think you can move him up your board a little bit. Half PPR, move him down. If you're not in a 0 PPR league, I don't know if anybody plays that anymore. Standard, slide him down a little bit, because I don't think he's going to be getting 20 carries a game in the NFL in his first 3 years.
Yeah, this class is very. I'm looking back at 2024 right now because I was like, I was just thinking to myself, like, I feel like we're talking about a lot of these guys the same way we were talking about those guys.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at, the Jalen Wright, the Marshawn Lloyd, Braylon Allen.
R.I.P.
Like,
Marshawn Lloyd.
yeah, well, I don't know what the hell that is. Like, there's some of these guys, like, they have roles, like there's something. And I think that's what we're talking about with these players too. But it's kind of, setting the expectation for what they're going to be. Or, maybe one of them was just be Bucky Irving, and then that's it.
That'd be great.
He came from that class too.
Sign me up.
All right. So I think now we are both on our top 3.
Yep.
And I think these are all going to be the same players. And I think that these are 3 exciting players. So I know I'm talking some ish about this class right now, but these 3 guys I am excited about. And number 3 for me is Jadarian Price.
You and me both.
Okay. I was wondering.
There was a little bit of anxiety in the air when you're like, yeah, these are all going to be the same guys, and I think this was the inflection point of like, did he make it up there for you? Because I know you knew that I had him kind of higher, and I was waiting to see where you were at on him.
So and I did know that because of the mock draft, but also I think after watching him, the tape just speaks for itself.
Yep.
Where it's like he is he is a back that belongs in this sort of a conversation pretty easily. I don't know that this is a tier jump from Haynes for me necessarily, but like it's a step up for sure. Like it's at least a step, maybe not a tier. But Jadarian Price was really fun to watch. Another player that is, kind of got a compact build, the 5'11, the 210, runs low, pads are low, way more explosive than I
He's
thought
fast,
he was.
man.
Like that was the thing where when I saw him move, I was like, "Oh, all right. Like this is the guy that was hidden behind Jeremiyah Love, and that's why we haven't been talking about him." But like he can move. Like he is legitimately explosive, legitimately fast. Like in a lot of ways it was almost like you are what I want Justice Haynes to be.
Mm.
Like the build is similar, the skill set is similar, but he has that next gear of athleticism that I'm like, that leaves me no doubt that you are like a comfortable fit at the NFL level as an athlete at this position. Now, outside of that, outside of the just like he's an athlete, he's explosive, he's kind of another one of these guys that I don't think like he's not super elusive. Like you don't see him forcing many missed tackles. You don't see him getting off of contact a ton. It's very spotty. Some games I watched, he's like constantly going down on first contact. Others, it's like you see him kind of run a couple guys over. But overall, I kind of left that as a negative because I want to see you have this low pad level, you have the size, you have the explosiveness where when you're running into a guy, you're moving. You should be moving them. You just don't see it as often enough as I would have liked with Price. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
I feel like he has better feet and contact when he's not going full speed, is what I noticed. It's like he gets up to speed fast and he'll like throw his whole like he's coming at you like a freight train, but then he hits you and goes backwards. And it's like, what's going on there? And then when he's kind of sifting his way through and like kind of making his way, it feels like he can shed a little more and then get into the speed that can, turn up a little bit. And I don't know if that's just something that maybe I'm picking out from watching the tape or if that's something that's an actual like real thing. I don't know, but I felt like when he was at speed, it felt like he had less contact balance than when he's like kind of picking his spots and moving his way through a defense. So that's something that I noticed. I definitely like the speed, the acceleration, the burst, all is like eye popping stuff where he looks like this is what gets you into this tier is like the excitement that you have when you watch him and you're like, oh, all right, this guy is kind of different athletically than any of the other players that I've watched so far. And he has a way of getting skinny in these holes where he can, find a small gap and kind of pop through and end up getting explosive play out of it. He is, I think, really good with his feet, has pretty clean feet behind the line of scrimmage. Watching Emmett Johnson and then coming over to this is like night and day of like running back teach tape what to do before you hit the line of scrimmage. You watch Jadarian Price versus, watching Emmett Johnson. It's like, man, this is muddy before we start to do anything. Price also a pretty good pass catcher, I'd say. Obviously, the volume of everything is cut back a lot when you look at what's going on here because of being on the same team as the best running back in the nation. Is like everything is going to be a little bit less in general, and quarterback also likes to push the ball a little more down the field, so it's not like even if he's open on a check down, it's not always going to come to him. I think, I talked about this a lot, is like Notre Dame, very good offensive line, very good run block scheme, so like follows that really well, and like not getting a lot of mess in his face before the line of scrimmage, which helps him stay clean and helps him get up to that speed. And like also kick returner on this team, and like that's kind of a telltale sign of these like explosive long speed backs is he returning kicks? Is he turning it into something? Had a couple kick return touchdowns this year. So impressive player, trying to get him the ball as much as possible without taking the ball away from Jeremiyah Love. And like we had some questions maybe early in the season about Love of, can he handle a high workload? I think it's just like, hey, we got to give this guy the ball too. I think that's like the honest answer is like, we can't forego Jadarian Price for Jeremiyah Love because he's good enough to command some of this workload.
Yeah, I buried the lead a little bit. I started talking about him as an athlete, but his vision is great. Like that was the number one thing for me where it's like, okay, obviously I like that you're an athlete, but like when he is making the right read consistently, finding space consistently, finding his cutback opportunities, working in open spaces well. I mean, he really does kind of have that it factor, I think, from this position to go along with that athleticism as well. You mentioned him as a pass catcher. I mean, the work is incredibly sparse, but I'm with you that I think the reps that you do see of him, he looks pretty good. And I think it's as long as he's not dropping the ball every time he's getting a target, it's like, this is the kind of player that we want to get into space, get him on a swing, get him, out and let him work with it a little bit because he has that athleticism and vision to make a play. So I think that's definitely something where we can, reasonably expect that he could add to his arsenal at the next level. And then, the only things for me, I kind of touched on him already, but the just, I want to see him break more tackles.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the vision to get himself into an open space, but I'd like to see him get through those second level tacklers more often than he does. That's really the biggest thing for me. And then also had 3 fumbles this year. So yeah.
Can you teach breaking tackles? Is that a thing that happens where people get better at that when they go into the league? I feel like players generally, like if they're not big tackle breakers in college, they don't like turn into, but maybe.
That is one of those things where I feel like you either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's almost unexplainable. Like Ashton Genty. And I know I'm comparing, we're talking
right.
at the top of the top, but it's just one of those things where it's like, sometimes I'm watching a running back and I'm like, oh yeah, he like, that's a good tackle. He would have went down there. But then I'm like, wait a minute, like Genty wouldn't have went down there. That's
right.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
what is the reason for that?
Yeah. Genty makes it look like nobody knows how to tackle. And like, I don't know if that's a Genty thing or what, but yeah, I don't know. It feels like, Price looks so like big and like stocky, and like you said, the low pad level, and I would love to see him, punish people a little more for meeting him in the hole, but just not really a part of his game right now.
There's a parallel that I was mentally drawing a little bit that kind of makes me nervous a little bit, but I'm going to ignore it. What if this is just Roschon Johnson?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too, and like I know that's an easy comp to make maybe because it's like Roshan Johnson behind Bijan and like Jadarian Price, and Roshan Johnson has been phased out of football. It feels like completely, but he has like a decent pass catcher and a powerful running back that doesn't break a ton of tackles. Yeah, I can see that parallel, and like it goes beyond just being a good backup running back behind a generational running back. But I don't know.
The good news is he's going to be faster.
True.
Roshan ran a 4.58, and I mean he's also a little bit smaller than Roshan was. But all right, number 2, I'm going to let you take this one away.
Yep. So number 2, Jonah Coleman. We have. I think we agree on that still. And maybe people are getting off the Jonah Coleman train after a maybe down season, but I think he ended up in a pretty good spot given that like he was banged up a decent amount. He got injured against Wisconsin this year, which was week 11. So that's why you see pretty much no production from then on, week 11, 13, 14, and then in the bowl game against Boise State, he had a combined, let's see, 5, 9, 18, 30 carries in those games. And, Boise State was even like, oh, that's pretty nice to see him back and healthy again playing in the bowl game. So Jonah Coleman, nice, powerful runner, kind of the meatball type, you would say, but we talked about him in the summer of like would like to see him shed a little weight, be a little faster, be a little more explosive, and still maintain some of that power. And I feel like he did all that. Watching him back, I was expecting it to be maybe not as good as it was in the summer, and like it really, like, on a per touch basis, I still felt like Coleman was doing all of the same things that he was doing last season, where he had, more production with the, 1,060 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, was more of like a red zone threat this year with 15 touchdowns versus 10, but had 40 less carries on the season. So that shows you the subdued yardage total at 759. Less yards per attempt as well. I think this Washington offense was just not as good in general this year. Obviously has Denzel Boston in the passing game, but we touched on that a little bit of like, I don't love this quarterback. The Washington quarterback just didn't impress me very much. And so like, again, another one of these running backs facing a lot of sacked boxes, but became a really good pass catcher because of that, where it's like, we got to find a way to get number one the ball one way or the other, and had like a 100-yard receiving game this season. Had 346 total receiving yards on the season, and that's taking out the last 4 games basically because of the banged up, because of the injury that he had, banged up. Don't want to like be force feeding him the ball in like a bowl game against Boise State, so only got 14 total touches in that game, and only 2 of them were catches. So I was impressed. I was like, man, this guy could be a really good short yardage back that has some bursts, that can catch passes. Like, feels like a lot of these players in this class are one-dimensional or like barely two-dimensional. And these top 3 guys, you feel a little more comfortable being like, especially I'd say for me, Jonah Coleman and Jadarian Price is like, I feel comfortable saying these are NFL, like quality NFL backs that could start in the league, where like the rest of them are like, yeah, maybe a specialized piece that needs some development. Coleman, I feel like, is like, yeah, you can throw him in. He can be your goal line back. He can be your third down back, and you can feel comfortable about that.
Man, there was a minute where I wanted to put Price over Coleman because I was like,
yeah,
it's an athlete's league, man. Like he's a much better athlete than Coleman is. That's undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, wait a minute. It's a football players league. And Jonah Coleman is a goddamn football player. And that's what I love about him. I mean, I think I'm with you totally. This year was, I don't, when we were going through it, it was like, what is happening? Like, is this really, I mean, is
Is
this
it over?
over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm with you. I came away feeling very confident about him. Especially, I mean, the pass catching work, just exceptional. And this is something that he's displayed before, was something that I think in the summer we were talking about, we wanted to come back because this was something that he was kind of known for at Arizona, and it came back in a big way this year. 31 for 346, and he looked great. They were running him on all sorts of stuff. I mean, they were lining him out wide, and you know, a lot of times it was just as like a decoy or like a motion, but it just, you
I
know,
don't know. I saw him run a post corner to clear out an out route, and I was like, "Whoa,
yeah,
all right, let's do it."
like there's like some legitimate route running skill here. And I think the number one thing for me that I was looking to clarify out of this season is what happened to the elusiveness, because that was something last year that really was exciting when you watch him, where it was like, man, he's got this stocky build and he is just like, guys are not able to get him down. Like, he is just fighting through contact consistently. And like, yes, this year was not as pronounced, but I still liked what I saw from him in terms of his contact balance. I mean, there were plenty of moments this year where he was bouncing off of guys, carrying entire units of defenders into the end zone. I mean, like, he's definitely a player that you can trust can break tackles. And that is something that has been a common theme of this episode, is that so many of these guys, it's like, yeah, you know, they're a little elusive, like they can kind of get through content, but it's like, here is a guy that can absolutely come in and be a force. And you know, we have linebackers flying off of him and safeties fearing, you know, when he's going to lower the shoulder on him and stuff like that. So yeah, I think in terms of the weaknesses, it's just the stuff that we've talked about with him before, really, which is that he is a limited athlete, and that's what it is. And I do wonder what the NFL will do with that, because we saw what the NFL did with a player like Cam Scadaboo, where I think these are like players that are in a similar vein, like cut from a similar cloth in some ways. Scadaboo, obviously, I would have a little bit higher than Coleman, but and Scadaboo went in the fourth round. So what does that mean for Jonah Coleman? I guess we'll wait to find out. But I think,
Late
yeah,
round Jim, maybe.
yes, exactly. And we listen. They took Scadaboo day 3. We didn't blink. We didn't flinch. I didn't
Didn't
blink.
it didn't
I
change
didn't
my
flinch.
opinion on him. I can tell you that.
And you know, we saw what happened.
Yeah.
So um
I think there's another area of improvement. I think like there's some hit and miss vision stuff where he does like to
you're
bounce
right.
it outside. Where like
Yes.
I don't mind it because it's most of the time it ends up being the right decision, but you'd rather like good process than good result. So there are times where you see him bounce it and it's like, all right, I get maybe you're tired of getting 3 yards and like pounding your head into the defensive line, but unfortunately, like that's the right read here. So like we got to get those 3 yards. But you know when he's playing against these teams, it's working out for him. So I don't want that to be like bad process carrying into the NFL. You know,
Yeah. And there's definitely some hesitancy at
right?
times as well from him. Like that vision is manifesting where he's just kind of hanging out for a minute and it's slowing his process down. But so that's the debate. If you wanna have the debate here, it's you have Price with the better vision, better athleticism versus Coleman, who is the better, you know, tackle breaker and better receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And which of those, you know, which combination of skills do you value more? That might be the answer for who you'd prefer in this conversation. And for each of us, we went with Jonah Coleman.
So number one, obviously, Jeremiyah Love. I think like that's I don't
No teaser required.
No, I'm not gonna play around with this. Jeremiyah Love, how many yards per carry do you think he averaged in high school?
Over 10?
It was 10.88, I believe I saw. Let's see, 10.48 yards per carry, and averaged almost 7 in his junior season at Notre Dame, as well as his sophomore season at Notre Dame. This was the consensus number one of this draft class going in. I've likened it to winning the lottery. If you got the 101, you're sitting there like looking at the Powerball numbers, like, man, someone's going to win $1.6 billion. It's like, yeah, you traded for that pick 3 years ago and somebody traded away their 2026 first, and you finally get to cash that in, bring it to the gas station and hold up your Jeremiyah Love big check at the end of the year. 6 foot, 215. He's got a little bit of everything that you could want. He's a good pass catcher. He's patient when he needs to be, hits the whole pace when he needs to be, good tackle breaker, exceptional athlete. I mean, this is a cream of the crop type of athlete. He's a track guy coming out, like a state track runner in high school where he won the state title in Missouri. And then he also was a long jumper, which you can tell. I mean, he hurdles guys, and it's like, this is just a ton of fun to watch. Like the Love tape after I've learned from Genty is watch the guy you think is going to be number one last, instead of watching it like, top guy to maybe you watch the bottom guys first, you work your way up to the top guys. You watch this at the end, it's like a little dessert. You maybe got through a struggle of a meal, whatever, and then you're like, man, this is real nice. You get the chocolate at the end, the cake at the end, and you get to just sit and enjoy watching Jeremiyah Love carve up defenses. And that's the play style, is you're carving your way through these defenses and you're getting these huge chunk plays. He had 896 yards after contact on the season, which is good for 4.5 per attempt. He had 56 missed tackles forced, had a run of 30 plus yards in almost every game, all but 4 of them, had 39 runs of 10 or more yards, had 23 runs of 15 or more yards. So the type of player that he is I am going to, hit you hard, make it hard to tackle me in the short area, and then I'm going to break one on you per game, and it's going to go to the house. He had a touchdown in every game but week 1 against Miami, in which he only had 10 carries. So, I mean, just an impressive player. This is the 101 that you're looking for. This is the, like, hey, I can pop this guy into my lineup day one and feel great about it, as long as he doesn't end up on the Raiders.
Hey, you see what Genty did last week?
I did. It was awesome.
I took your advice this year, and I watched Jeremiyah Love last, and it was exactly how you described it. It was a sweet treat at the end of a long, arduous journey. And it really puts it into perspective when you do that too, because it's like you're watching these guys and you start to kind of, your mind almost starts to fill in some gaps where it's like, yeah, like I really like this about him. And if he just did this, like he'd be great. And then you kind of start, it's like, well, nobody's perfect,
Yeah, exactly.
And then you get to this moment where it's Jeremiyah Love, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, these players do exist in college where they are basically perfect, and they're bringing together every element of this position and how to succeed at it. And that was this season for Jeremiyah Love. I mean, it absolutely was dominant. I will say this. This has been a drumbeat that I think we've been playing for the whole season, but I want to make sure it's very clear, especially if anybody is listening here for the first time
Hey,
and we're
welcome.
talking, yeah, welcome. We're talking Jeremiyah Love. This is the big, name of the class here. The contact balance is as impressive to me as his athleticism. I think he is known for those big runs. He's known for the breakaway stuff, and maybe known for the hurdles and all of that stuff. His contact balance is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's one of these guys where it's like you watch his teammate get through the line of scrimmage and you get a linebacker diving at his as legs and he's just going down.
Mm.
And then you got Jeremiyah Love on the next play where guys are and he's got I would say his lower half is a little more like lean.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know he's got the size, like 6'2", 215, but like the lower half is a little bit more lean. Doesn't matter.
No.
Guys will dive at him and he will stay up. I mean, there was one run that I watched where it was like guy dives at him. He's kind of stumbling, but maintains his balance. And then another guy dives at him as he's regaining his balance, and he still stays on his feet for like an extra 10 yards until he finally loses it. But it was like a 20-yard play that really like should have been like 5 yards.
Yeah.
And that kind of is Jeremiyah Love to me in a nutshell. It's not just I'm going to get outside and accelerate and create a 70-yard run. It is this 5-yard run became a 10-yard run, became a 25-yard run. Like
That's what makes him a first round NFL top
exactly.
15 NFL pick, is that he's not just going to grind out like some nice yards and he's like an explosive play merchant, I wouldn't say. It's like he gets 10 yards off of effort and tackle breaking. It's not like I get, maybe he gets a free 2 or 3 from this offensive line because this offensive line is very good, but like the vision and the tackle breaking carry him to these like big breakaway plays.
And then the pass catching work.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the one-handed catches, the variety of routes. I mean,
catching away from his frame.
Yeah. He's making wide receiver plays out of the backfield. And they're lining him up in the slot.
Yep.
I watched him run a slant route out of the slot. I'm like, do this more at the next level. Like this can be the Devon Achane deployment where he is being used almost as a hybrid because he can absolutely do that.
I'm down. And then also be 25 pounds heavier.
Right. Yeah.
Hard to get this guy down on the ground. I tell you what.
You're talking about a Powerball ticket, and that is exactly what this player is. He is. I mean, what is your weakness for Jeremiyah Love? What is the thing that prevents this from being is he a Bijan level player for you?
I mean, I'd have him like in a similar breath. I just feel like maybe trusting the athleticism too much, like to a fault, which can lead to getting ahead of himself or like bouncing one here. It's kind of the same issue that I had with Bijan, where he's awesome and like he's the best running back prospect I've scouted, but like I still was like I there was a hole there for you to hit. You bounce it outside, whatever. It ended up being 8 yards. So like it doesn't matter, but it's just like sometimes you are overtuned where you're like, yeah, I could hit this hole and get 7 yards, but I see a corner and like this edge is pretty sealed. If I bounce this, I can score. And like you can almost like, it's hard to fault a guy for that, but you don't want to make that into a habit.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think it's also one of those things where Bijan had that, Saquon had that. Like a lot of these guys, they're just that damn good.
Right.
Like it's like you learn the rules so you know how to break them type stuff. Like that's kind of how I think some of these guys operate, where it's like maybe that's a negative EV play for most guys,
Exactly.
but like when they create that one that go like you get it all back right there.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of that. I think the workload stuff, I think that was pretty much answered this year. I mean,
Is there a world that this guy ends up on the Bears and they have like he has like 2,000 yards next year?
absolutely.
Like, because if you just one for one replace him, like Monangai and Swift just like get replaced by Jeremiyah Love, and he is like David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs for Ben Johnson. Like, I don't know. I feel like we could be looking at something crazy.
I don't want to imagine the world where that is a real possibility, but it feels like it is.
Yeah, because you end up being, I guess the Bears are maybe playing themselves out of that by being like too good, but I don't know.
All right. Well, that's it.
That's it. There it is.
That's 6 total running backs,
Yep.
which is about the number that feels
Before you
like
start feeling real shaky.
yeah, that feels like a good number right now
Yeah.
because there's not much else going on after that. But are there any other players that you'd like to talk about? I think I know one that we probably should talk about.
Let's see. My list is loading right now. There were a few names that I wanted to, but they either hadn't declared or had already said that they're going back to school. Let's see. Kaytron Allen we talked about, which is good. What do you got for me while I scroll through?
I think the one omission that is worth discussing is Nick Singleton.
Oh, sure, right.
Because why not? Let's just do this for a third time,
Yeah, so Nick Singleton didn't make my he'd probably be sitting right behind Kaytron Allen, and I mean, kind of ironic the guy that took his job also like sliding up, but he just doesn't feel like a high volume back in the NFL, and I would like to see that change because he's got like athletic coming out of his ears, or athleticism coming out of his ears, but I just feel like when you watch him, it's like the vision's not all there, doesn't succeed very frequently as a between the tackles runner, is a pretty solid pass catcher, but not like a good enough route runner to be like a frequent pass, like a third down back. So I just feel like he's kind of in limbo with his abilities and his athleticism, where maybe he could be like a good running back in one timeline, but it just doesn't feel like he's at the level of runner that he would need to be a fantasy relevant running back.
And in that multiverse where Nick Singleton and Quinshawn were the two promised sons of the 26 class.
R.I.P. Judkins.
Or 25 class. Yeah, R.I.P. Judkins. That sucks. But Singleton, I'm gonna say it. Just when I thought I was out, he he might have pulled me back in a little bit. That is also just a product of how far he had fallen for me, where it was like coming into the year, I was like, I'm just out. Like, I'm just all the way out. You're still doing all the same stuff that I don't like. There was notable improvement this year. Like, I thought we saw some things from Singleton that we hadn't seen yet, namely that he was using his athleticism finally to break some tackles. Like, I saw him actually like get when he was in those situations where it's like a player of this caliber should probably be breaking this tackle right now, and he's not. Like, I saw those going the other way for him a few times this year, and I saw him running with a little bit of power this year. They were using him, strangely enough, they were kind of using him as their goal line back.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, he had 13 touchdowns this year. And like, I mean, some of them were like, he had a little bit of a nose for it. But the pass catching work has been something that has really been like the only thing for him over the last couple of years that has really been like, all right, this is really impressive. And that was still there this year. So I'm not, I'm not all the way back in. I'm not saying, oh, he is going to be a second round pick after all, but I came away thinking that Nick Singleton as a day 3 project makes me a little bit more excited than it would have like 6 months ago.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I've always been kind of a Singleton fan, so like I would love it if we could, get him with some good development and find a way to have him be a pass catching back and work his way. Like we talked about some of these other guys. It's like find a role and then expand your role one way or the other and find some opportunity. So I would like to see that out of him. I was just looking at the list and I was like, man, a lot of guys next year. But I'll leave it where we got Kawan Lacey and Ahmad Hardy in the pipeline right now.
Yeah, God, 27, man. It's
hopefully you've been stocking up on those.
It keeps knocking.
If you got a late first, maybe
Yeah, make the move right now. All right. Well, that is running backs 2.0. And of course, we will follow this running back class as it develops. We'll get, the Senior Bowl. There's going to be some guys there. It's not just 6 or bust maybe, but just temper your expectations. If you are a team that needs running back help, there's a pretty good chance it's not coming in this draft. So don't bet on that unless you have 101.
Right.
But if you enjoyed our discussion about the 2026 running back class, be sure to find us on Twitter, camp_dynasty, and TikTok at camp.dynasty. If you are listening to this episode on the pod feed, switching it up this week, be sure to follow and like and review or rate and review if you'd like to do that. It's okay if you don't. If you're on YouTube, though, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video before you leave, because those little gestures help us out quite a bit. So we really
got a ton of new
appreciate
subscribers
Yes.
wide receivers. Like 80
welcome. Thank you.
Welcome to the ride. Stick around for next year. It'll be more fun.
Yeah. Please excuse me being a Debbie Downer about the
having the flu
class.
and having to scout these running backs. I can't imagine it's very fun.
But it's okay because what's up next? Oh no, that's right. It's quarterbacks.
That's also not a sexy fantasy category this year. I'll say that. There might be some names and it'll be fun to go through them, but
yeah. We'll talk about the hits. We'll get the Mendozas and the maybe
Mendoza.
Is Dante Moore going to be in this thing after all? I don't know. It's changing by the day, but all right. Well, thank you for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.